Hello, everybody. Welcome today. My name is Kalan Hooks, and today I'm here with Ben Odom. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Kalan. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. So, Ben, first, I want to start off, by asking, what do you do in NASCAR? Like, what is your position in NASCAR?
Yeah, Kalan. My title is Vice President of Business and Legal Affairs for NASCAR. And I guess I would describe what I do is I am an attorney. I'm kind of on the fringe of the legal department. I kind of function in that space where the legal world meets the business world. So a good bit of special projects, mergers, acquisitions, some litigation management, kind of a little bit of a neat role where you can kind of bounce around into multiple subject matters of the business and work on different type of projects that maybe not fit in one like legal specialty like a contract or a compliance or litigation, stuff like that.
Definitely. So it definitely sounds like, there's some steps that you have to take in order to get to the position that you are. So kind of talk about, your process and your journey, where you started and the kind of different checkpoints that you had to take to end up where you are now.
It's a good point that you bring up is and I've done a lot of things to um, um, get to where I'm in this role. And I started fairly entry level at a company called International Speedway Corporation, also in Daytona Beach. It still exists, although it doesn't really operate anymore. It was an affiliate of NASCAR. It was publicly traded on NASDAQ, owned 13 racetracks, and I started really early on in my career there with not a ton of experience, and did kind of what you would expect a corporate attorney to do in an entry level role. A lot of contract review, a lot of contract drafting, a lot of contract negotiation, some cease and desist letters, some and work with a ton of more experienced attorneys and try to support them on some of their larger projects. And was in a fortunate position because I didn't have a specialty and wasn't put in one area to, hey, you're just going to work on this. And I think because I was willing to work on any subject matter, if something came up, even if I wasn't the main attorney on it, I would try to participate. Hey, how can I help with this project? How can I help with this? Always trying to learn more stuff. And as the business evolved, the business grew, and this is about the time of the economic recession back in the 2009 2010, and so you we just faced a lot of new stuff in that time frame. I was able to get wide swaths of the business and the operation and try to just build a foundation for where we're at today.
Definitely. So definitely a lot of legal work. I hear, definitely a lot of steps to be taken, and, within those steps that, are to be taken, that requires a lot of hard work. You don't really come across, people that say like, hey, I have a job in NASCAR, all the time. So, I could definitely say that you definitely put in the work. And, the next thing I want to touch on, is hard work. You definitely had to work hard into the space that you are today. So kind of talk about, how do you go about hard work, your work ethic, and, how do you apply it to your day-to-day life and at your job?
Yeah, I think people that are and I feel like I work with a bunch of like-minded people, and I take it like you're in a program that, and the people watching this are in a program. You're probably similarly wired to somebody like me, and there's people that work here, and that there's probably a part of you that likes working hard. There's probably a part of you that that doesn't enjoy being bored, and kind of that 9 to 5 thing doesn't really work for you, and you kind of get excited about the challenge. Like, I want to do something that's not ordinary. And I think there's a lot of people that work in positions like this and roles like this and companies like this that are kind of similarly wired to that. And for us, it's, a lot of events are on weekends or at nights, and that requires you to answer the phone or react to certain things that they don't happen in the normal business hours. And I think I get a little bit of a kick out of it, and I like the challenge of it, and I like the excitement of it. Um, and I think if I was the only one here that was like that, well, that might get old, but it does feel like that the culture that the France family has created with NASCAR is, hey, we're kind of all in it together, and we all do what it takes. And Bill France Sr. said years ago, hey, everybody sells tickets, right? So I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm on an island here. I feel like that there's a lot of people that they really enjoy that, being part of something bigger than themselves and working as a team to grow it. I think that's a lot of why people like us work in sports is you came up around sports, you were in sports all the way, you like the team environment, you like going the extra mile, you like having your teammates back. And I think that's translated well into the role that I'm in now. And I think that translates well for a lot of people that have that background and transition into you got to transition into the real world at some point, and you got to transition into real life at some point. But I think that really helps. And I've noticed a lot of either former athletes or people that came up in the sport world kind of having that same mentality.
No, definitely. You definitely touched on something there that really stood out to me. Teamwork, and there's this old saying that teamwork makes the dream work. And so I definitely want you to like kind of touch on your team, and the like-mindedness that you all have. How does working on a team bring the ultimate vision together within NASCAR?
Yeah, what's interesting is it does feel like a team, and I think it's a great. You want your team to feel like a team and like you're all rowing in the same direction. Whatever cliche you want to use, you got each other's back, but you can't all be the same because we don't need two Ben Odoms here. We need one Ben Odom I've got my skill set. I'm really good at certain things, and there's certain things I'm not good at. And what you try to do is build a team that, hey, my strengths need to complement other people's weaknesses, and their strengths need to complement my weaknesses. I've got plenty of those. And I think one of the most important things is you're building a team like that is if you're the ultimate decision maker, if you're the head of a department, if you're the head of even the head of the company, is you've got to recognize what each member of your team, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and make sure that if they've got weaknesses, how do you surround them with people that can complement that? And then yourself, you need to have some self-awareness too. I mean, I need to understand what I'm probably really good at, and I certainly need to recognize that I'm not good at everything. And I need to have people around me as I build a team that can complement my weaknesses. And then you've got to be secure enough to recognize that, hey, look, so and so on the team they've got more capacity to do it. They've got more time to do it. They're smarter than me in this area. They've got more experience than me in this area. I'm willing to let them take the lead on this project. I'll help where I can. That doesn't mean that I'm just punting work their way. You don't want to be the guy you can't do that all the time. You still got to do your job, but I think you got to be confident enough to let people do their job and not micromanage them, but also provide that level of support that they need. And I think all of that's a long way of saying that you got to find the right balance, whether you're the leader on the team or you're an individual. You got to find the right balance and find that sweet spot of delegating versus leading and doing your own stuff, recognizing what your strengths are, having people compliment your weaknesses without just being willing, like, hey, I've got weaknesses, but I still need to work on those weaknesses, And so it's tough, but you're always striving for that balance of having that in harmony.
No, definitely. And, support, definitely goes a long way within this industry. I could say definitely for myself, there have been times where, I didn't believe in myself, but I always had, that teammate or that friend or that colleague that say like, hey, man, you got this, I believe in you, you can do it. And it definitely goes a long way. And it definitely shows in the work too, definitely. So the next thing, I kind of want to talk about, I kind of want to take a shift. So just going off of like memories, let's say, I kind of want you to touch on, 1 or 2 memories that you have during your career so far. It could be fun. It could be, it could be anything.
There's been a couple. I tend to remember the like experience that I've gotten by working in this place that maybe others that I didn't think I would get. Or when they're happening, you look around and you think it's like, man, I can't believe I'm here, right? And there's a couple. I can remember there were 2 or 3 years ago that we were going out to. I live in Daytona Beach. I was meeting a colleague. He was flying from the race at Richmond, and we were going to our track in Talladega. Alabama for a series of meetings on a Monday morning. So we're flying out there on a Sunday morning, and on the way out there, I mean, Talladega is a very rural area. We've got thousands of acres of property. And the Speedway president asked me and my good friend Jeff, is like, hey, do you guys want to go dove hunting while you're here? Like, of course, we're outdoorsy. I would love to go dove hunting. And so we literally set up in a hunting field behind the racetrack. And it was one of those perfect fall evenings. The sun starts setting over the racetrack. You're out there in the middle of the woods and in this field. And I just remember watching the sun set over the racetrack and just think, like, I can't believe that I get to do something like this, because a lot of people would like to do stuff like that. I can remember we had some big project go well, and we celebrated it at the Daytona 500 one year, which is our marquee event. And one of the guys that was he was the head of the business unit that we were celebrating with. He said, hey, we could do something traditional. We could go to a fancy restaurant and celebrate. Or he said, I'm staying on an RV in the infield. Why don't you just come by the RV? We'll have some drinks there. I'll grill out for you. And so there was a group of 6 of us in the infield the night before the Daytona 500 with it all lit up with all the fans in. And we were just sitting in the infield of the racetrack, having a drink, having dinner, celebrating a win. And I just remember thinking, like, man, there's not a ton of jobs or careers where this would be possible. And it makes all the hard work worth it because you get to celebrate it with people you really like too. And those are the two. And when I think about experiences and good times that I've had here, those are two that kind of, they when you ask that question, those are the two that flashed into my head.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a win. I could never imagine, sitting on the infield and having dinner. That's something that I hope I could do one day.
It was a very neat night. That was, you're talking about 10 years ago now, but I clearly I remember it because it's the first thing that popped into my head when you asked me the question.
Definitely, definitely go back to your point, that hard work, all the hard work does pay off. Sometimes, probably like 5 to 10 years ago, a lot of us don't think that we're going to end up in the craft or in the position that we are. And then it's just like, you're in that position now and you just like, man, I have to take it all in. Got to take it all in. And it's just the greatest feeling in the world, definitely, I could say. And, definitely from hearing off of your experiences, that's definitely something that a lot of people will love to experience. And with hard work, it can definitely take you anywhere.
I don't think you appreciate it unless you had to work hard to get it. I mean, I don't know that. I think you're kind of hitting the nail on the head for me. And I mean, my experience is unique to me, just like yours is unique to you. But part of the benefit of that is I just don't know. I just don't know if we would have, if I would appreciate stuff as much if I didn't have to work as hard to get it. And so that's and if you've got that at this stage in your career and you've got that perspective, you're certainly ahead of where I was when I was in your shoes. I'm embarrassed to admit how many years ago I was in your shoes, but I remember those days, and I wish I had your perspective on that back then.
Yeah, definitely. It's just something that that I've been preaching to myself a lot, that if you want to be successful, you have to put in the time, you have to put in the work, you have to make the sacrifices. And when you do all that, you may not be rewarded at that point in time, but you will be rewarded eventually. So definitely your testimony definitely speaks to that, of course. I definitely want to take a touch, because, within everybody's process, there's always lessons that people have to learn to help them get to that next level. So, kind of talk about, a lesson or two that you've learned along the way to working to the position that you got to now.
I think you have to learn patience, and that's really hard. That's hard when you're young. Look, I'm not young, and it's hard for me now to understand that. I think you kind of know how you want things to go. I know how, I'll speak for me, I know how I wanted things to go, and there were certain things that I wanted, whether it was a raise, a bonus, a position. I want to work on this project, and it's not all going to go your way, and it's real easy to get frustrated. I still get frustrated. To take a deep breath and have some patience and just, hey, look, it didn't go my way, but it eventually will. Just don't give up. Don't don't get so frustrated that it impacts something else. I think it was hard to learn, but it's hard to learn. Um, you will eventually learn it, whether you learn it the easy way or the hard way. You will eventually learn that. I
Yeah.
learned it the hard way. Um, I think um, resilience is so important. There's no job that I'm aware of that every day is great. And I think when you work in as an attorney, you work on a lot of problems. People bring to you stuff. It's not all um, great situations that they bring for you to help. I mean, sometimes you got to solve some tough problems, and sometimes the solutions are not great. It's you're choosing between what are the least negative solutions, and that can be, and sometimes you can't solve the problem. Sometimes you acknowledge that, hey, this is a problem we cannot solve. We're gonna have a hard time with it. Um, that takes some. You got to have some resilience to come back. You deal with a day like that, to get back up and come back the next day, you got to be pretty resilient. I think that's a quality that a lot of people, and it's probably not limited to the legal profession. I think in anybody's career or life, you're going to get hit with that haymaker when you least expect it, and it takes some real resilience to get back up. So the patience and resilience are the two qualities I think over time are going to serve folks pretty well um, in the long haul, because it's not going to happen right away, but in the long haul, I think those are the two qualities that I would point to that have I probably leaned on the most.
No, definitely. Within everybody's process, we always come across these walls, and within these walls, it's either we're gonna, back away from it and just say we're not even going to touch it. We're going to work around it over, or try to figure our way around it, because, when you eventually work through it, over around it, that's when you get better. That's when you reach that next level within, your career, or within, just your skill set, or even becoming a better person in life. And, I definitely love that you touched on that, because, a lot of us college students, within, even people that are out of college are still looking forward to getting, to the career of their dreams. Some people, they have that issue, patience and resilience is just something that just doesn't click at that moment. And, with them here in the gym that you just dropped, that would definitely click their mind like, hey, let me take a step back. Let's plan this out. All right, now we're planning this out. Let's watch this work. Oh, it doesn't work. It's okay. We're going to work around it. So I definitely appreciate you for dropping that gem. And the last thing, I want to ask, just, kind of just give some advice, to a college student or anybody that would love to get, to the position that you're in, or even just, the career of their dreams.
Um, I'll give a couple. I tell people, like, when people ask for my advice is free and worth every penny, right? So take it for what it is. I think a couple of things. I think one is I would ask, if you said, like, if you identified something like, I think this is the career of my dreams, right here, like you say, hey, I want to work in sports. I think the first thing I would ask is, why is that the career of your dreams, or why do you want to work in sports? And make sure that you want to do it for the right reasons. Like, I typically work in sports, and this is an office, and this is work, and it's paperwork, and you're dealing with stuff that, whether you worked in sports or not, you're working on. You're an attorney. I don't go to a NASCAR race every day. I'm not. It's not. There's a separation between the sport and the work. If you even if you understand, and then if you understand that, you say, you know what, but still, that's what I want to do. Then I think the advice I give is that there are a ton of different paths to get to the career, whether it's in sports or whatever. There's a ton of different paths to take, and there's an endless amount of paths to take to get there. There's if Come on, I don't know how many people you're going to do an interview with, but if you ask them, hey, tell me your path, if you ask 10 people to tell you their path, you're going to get 10 different paths. And I think that's what is awesome about maybe just life in general is you can, if for some people they graduate law school or they graduate college and they immediately go into that path and they start working on that career right then. Some people take, hey, I need to go to I go work at a law firm, and then I go work for the government, and then I come in-house. I mean, and anything in between, there's a million different paths. And so I think when people, I'll go sports specific, when people think sports specific, they think graduate from college, probably with a sports management degree of some sort, and I got to go get a job at a team, or I got to go get a job in a league. And that, hey, that sounds awesome. That will get you in there. But I think about the race that's coming up in Daytona this weekend. There will be 500, if not more, companies coming to advertise their product or somehow participate in their product in this sport. And they're not, I mean, it's General Motors, it's Chevrolet, it's Gatorade, it's Ford. All of those have some sort of sports marketing division at a Fortune 500 company. So it might not get you to a team right away, but then you could go work at Chevrolet, and you'd never think Chevrolet, you think about cars driving up and down the road, they got a sports marketing division. Well, I could work in sports marketing at Chevrolet. And that's a path, that's an opportunity that I didn't, when I was in your shoes, I didn't even know it existed. And guess what Chevrolet has, or Ford, or any of these others? They've got a sports marketing agency that helps them with activation at the racetrack, helps them get their hospitality, helps them choose their drivers, their athletes. I had no idea. When I was in your shoes, I didn't know what a sports marketing agency was, and there are hundreds of them across the country. And so I think that's a long way of saying the advice I would give in that space is, and cast a wide net. Be willing to understand that it doesn't have to be one of the 32 NFL teams, or one of the 30 NBA teams, or one of the 6 sports leagues. And there is a wide net of stuff out there that you can do and get into sports. And once you're into that sport, you just never, and you may have a goal and say, I want to work for the NFL, and you may get there. Or once you're in there, you may realize, hey, the NFL is awesome, but there are all these other sports that I would rather go work for because they're smaller or faster or more nimble. I mean, have an open mind to be able to cast a wide net to get into this business, and I think it'll serve you. I think it'll serve you well.
Oh, definitely, man. Well, look, I really appreciate you for your time. Dropping a lot of gems on us today, man. Like I said, your advice is definitely worth every penny. I will pay hundreds of dollars to hear that advice, because that advice that you just dropped was great. And one quick question before I let you go here. Who is your favorite NASCAR driver?
I as a typical attorney, I will not give you just a hard, I like this driver. I tend to cheer for and pull for and hope for success for the guys that I have seen do really nice stuff for people when nobody else is watching. And there's a few guys that are just genuinely good guys. So Martin Truex Jr., he drives the 19 car Bass Pro Shop sponsorships for Joe Gibbs Racing, is one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. I hope when he has success on the racetrack, I like that. There's a driver that's from Florida, Ross Chastain. He grew up on a watermelon farm in Florida. I grew up in Florida in a very rural environment. I hope he has success. I like the second and third generation drivers too, the guys that kind of grew up in the sport and you saw them as kids, right? Their dads raced, like a Ryan Blaney or a Chase Elliott. I think it's cool that when you see the second and third generation drivers come along. So I'll hope for success for the Ryan Blaney's and the Chase Elliott's. So those guys that I know they understand what the sport means. They came up hard. They do really nice stuff for people even when the cameras aren't on. And those are the guys that I tend to hope have success. And I think those 3 or 4 that I mentioned would. I think those. If you're not a fan of NASCAR and you're going to turn the race on this weekend on NBC for the first time and watch, those are the 4 guys I would probably say, hey, if those guys win the race, I'm probably pretty happy for them.
Definitely. Everybody wins on the team. Definitely, Ben. Look, I appreciate you for your time, man, and continue to be impeccable. We all appreciate you, and keep being great.
Well, Kalon, thanks for having me on. I hope this helps. I really am always flattered when I get invited to do something like this. So I do appreciate you reaching out to me.
Definitely.